Chapter 4886. 3 days later, the bright and beautiful sun shone on the earth, emitting a warm aura. The golden radiance shone through the gaps of the leaves and shone on the white figure, dyeing it with a layer of noble and holy golden light. The woman's eyebrows were like emerald feathers, her skin was like snow, her waist was like a bundle of silk, and her exquisite and perfect facial features were like a work of art that was meticulously carved by the heavens. All the beauty was placed on her, blooming with a breathtaking beauty. Beside her, two handsome figures, one black and one white, stood on both sides of her. The white-robed man was as noble as a god, while the black-robed man was as cold as ice. Despite the two different temperaments, their faces were breathtaking. At this moment, although the two men were cultivating, they would occasionally open their eyes to observe the situation of the white-robed woman. Bewitching's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. He could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's aura was gradually strengthening. Looking at the situation, I'm afraid that Hongzhuang is going to break through again. A knowing smile bloomed on his handsome face. Initially, he was still worried about Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. However, the situation that happened later made his worries dissipate. Because Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had already broken through from Starlight Realm Level 6 to Starlight Realm Level 7. If she didn't fix her problem, she wouldn't be able to break through. And now, he could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's aura had increased. He was afraid that she would break through to Starlight Realm Level 8 this time. Although Hongzhuang went through a dangerous situation, from the looks of it, she also gained a lot of benefits. This can be considered as the beginning of the end of bitterness. Mo Yunjue's lips bloomed into a sincere smile, causing the cold lines on his face to become gentler. There is less of a trace of coldness and more of a trace of gentleness. Sure enough, opportunities and risks coexist. His deep and dark eyes were filled with joy. I think Hongzhuang will come out of seclusion after breaking through. Mo Yunjue nodded slightly. Let's wait patiently. Bai Shi and Xiao Xuanzi were also overjoyed. Originally, it would take a lot of effort to raise one's cultivation by one level. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to break through 2 levels in such a short period of time. If news of this progress were to spread, who knew how many people would be envious? Boom! Following the sound of a breakthrough, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a bright smile before she opened her eyes. Her bright eyes were filled with joy and surprise. I didn't expect that I would be able to break through 2 levels with the help of that spiritual energy. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed to herself. Not only did his cultivation increase by 2 levels, the increase in his divine sense was even more obvious. This was truly a great harvest. When they noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough, Bewitching and Mo Yunjue had stopped cultivating. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang coming out of seclusion, the two of them went up to greet her. Wife, have you completely recovered? His handsome face was filled with a warm smile. Even though he had already guessed the result, he still couldn't help but ask. Seeing the deep concern in Bewitching's eyes and the faint warmth from his body, Bailey Hongzhuang's lustrous and watery eyes became sparkling. She nodded her head playfully. I'm fine now. That's good. Bewitching breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did he completely relax. Chapter 4887. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a gentle smile. Don't worry, I'm fine now. Although it was very dangerous for the sorcerer to possess my body, I'm still safe and sound. I've also gained a lot. Sorcerer? Bewitching's handsome face froze. What exactly happened? Junling Xuan has always had a sorcerer's soul by his side helping him. This time, the sorcerer took a fancy to my physical body and chose to possess it. However, he was purified by my light energy in the end. If it weren't for the fact that I'm of the light attribute, I would have been in deep trouble this time. Her light and pleasant voice was filled with emotion. However, I've also profited from this disaster. My spiritual sense has been greatly improved, and my cultivation has also improved. If I encounter such a situation again in the future, I won't struggle so bitterly like before. After repairing her sea of consciousness this time, she realized that her sea of consciousness was much stronger than before and had expanded a lot. The improvement was self-evident. So Junling Xuan has such a helper by his side. It's no wonder that he's always been so confident. Di Beichen's cold eyes flashed with anger. His gaze was as cold as snow. He won't be so lucky next time. How are Xiaohe and Xiaobai now? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Bai Shi and realized that Xiaohe and Xiaobai were still in a deep sleep and showed no signs of waking up. Bai Shi shook his head. Ever since that day, they've been sleeping like this. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked over. After taking their pulse, she realized that their condition was still the same as before. There weren't many changes. It looks like Xiaohe and Xiaobai won't be waking up for a while. Although this incident has caused them some harm, it might also be an opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and bright eyes were filled with determination. She pursed her red lips. This was her judgment. They definitely will. Di Beichen comforted her gently. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two once again stepped on the path forward. Xiaohe and Xiaobai were still on Bai Shi's body. He used his fur to wrap Xiaohe and Xiaobai. These two little fellows were very small to begin with, so it wasn't a problem for them to stay on Bai Shi's body. Even so, Bai Shi still walked less, hoping that he could give Xiaohe and Xiaobai a comfortable environment as much as possible. Noticing Bai Shi's small actions, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes became even gentler. Even though these little fellows were used to bickering with each other, they were very concerned for each other. You, Xiao, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bai's Hongzhuang, and pointed to a direction. Wifey, you can determine directions in the immortal cloud mystic realm. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue's deep eyes were filled with confusion and amazement. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue looked at each other. These few days, they had been randomly choosing a direction to walk in. It was completely based on luck. No, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and shook her head. Every place here has a different environment. It's all foggy. How can we know which direction to go? Then, Mo Yunjue's handsome brows furrowed. He was even more puzzled. Previously, I obtained a black stone in the Penglai Palace. All this time, I didn't know what it was used for, so I kept it in the Chaos Ring. Chapter 4888. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue's faces filled with astonishment. Is that the black stone from before? Di Beichen raised his handsome brows. He knew about this black stone as well. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang had shown him this black stone. However, at that time, they had not been able to figure out what the stone was used for. They never thought that it would have a reaction in the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right, it's that stone. That means that this stone is probably something that has been passed down from the upper realm. Di Beichen's eyes filled with understanding. No wonder we couldn't figure it out back then. So the answer lies here. Since we have a target, let's head in that direction. Mo Yunjue spoke without hesitation. They had been wandering around aimlessly in this place, so they had no idea where to go. No one knew where they would find a reward. Perhaps they would stumble upon a place that would bring them a bountiful harvest. Furthermore, the stone in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand was clearly no ordinary object. The place that it was pointing to would definitely not be simple. The three of them looked at each other and smiled as they made the same decision in their hearts. This was a great opportunity. If they left the divine cloud secret realm, they would never be able to uncover the secret of this stone again. Along the way, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two hurried along as fast as they could. No one knew where the stone was leading them to, nor did they know if anyone would arrive first. The sooner they arrived, the more advantage they would have. Along the way, they would occasionally meet other cultivators. However, none of them were disciples of the Di family or the Lin family. Hence, everyone only met each other briefly before leaving. They had no intention of forming a team or competing against each other. I wonder where Junling Xuan and Xiao So have been transported to. Mo Yunjue furrowed his brows. He felt that the two of them would be trouble as long as they were alive. If he could get rid of these two guys earlier, it would save him a lot of trouble. The escape talisman in Xiao Sou's hands is probably not simple. Presumably, the teleportation distance should be quite far. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, "The greater the power of the escape talisman, the further the teleportation distance." That escape talisman was Xiao Sou's life-saving measure. With her identity as the Holy Maiden of Light, her status in the Xiao clan must be the highest. Naturally, the escape talisman would not be simple. From the looks of it, we won't be able to meet them for a while, Di Beichan said in a low voice. His deep and enchanting eyes flashed with a trace of haze. His thoughts were the same as Mo Yunju's. As long as these two guys were dealt with, they would be able to completely relax. We could try to see if we can meet Su Minglei along the way. Her black and white eyes rippled with a cold light. Regarding Su Minglei, Bailey Hongzhuang also clearly remembered him. If it wasn't for this damn fellow, he wouldn't have fallen into such a predicament. As long as he met him again, he definitely wouldn't let that guy slip away. Su Minglei from the Su family? Di Beichan looked inquiringly at Bailey Hongzhuang. He also made a move against you? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Only then did she explain the sequence of events. Although Su Minglei left before us, he obviously didn't travel as far as the escape talisman. We might meet him along the way. Chapter 4889. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was looking forward to meeting Su Minglei along the way, it was a pity that this fellow's luck was pretty good. She had not seen his shadow for several days in a row. However, as they hurried along, they were getting closer and closer to the place that the black stone was pointing them to. The place that we're looking for should be not too far ahead. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. The feeling from the stone was getting clearer and clearer. It was clearly right in front of them. Hearing this, Di Beichan and Mo Yunju's eyes lit up with joy. After hurrying along for such a long time, they finally arrived at their destination. As they gradually got closer, a white building appeared in their line of sight. The entire building was white and flashed with a bright and dazzling light. It was filled with endless nobility and holiness. A solemn and serene aura emanated from the building, causing their originally impetuous hearts to settle down inexplicably. There's actually a white building here. Could it be a historical remnant? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with astonishment. Even though she had been saying that the place that the black stone was pointing them to would not be simple, when she saw this building, she realized that this was probably another historical remnant. Di Beichan's eyes were filled with astonishment. This white building reminded him of the Black Palace that he had seen in the lower realm. However, there was a fundamental difference between the two buildings. Nevertheless, they both emitted an aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. One cannot help but feel reverence towards them. It's very possible. Mo Yunjue was also shocked. Could this historical remnant also be the inheritance of a light attribute cultivator? A light attribute cultivator's power was white. Generally speaking, cultivators of other attributes would not choose this color when building historical remnants. Only light attribute cultivators liked this color the most. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan looked at each other. They had the same question in their minds. Then, the three of them walked forward without hesitation. As they gradually got closer, they heard a sound coming from not too far away. Seeing this, the three of their expressions changed slightly. They did not expect that other cultivators would have arrived before them. This remnant is really strange. There are clearly no restrictions, but I can't enter at all. That's right. When I first discovered this place, there weren't many people here. I didn't expect there to be more and more people waiting here. Most importantly, we don't know when this will end. The conversations were filled with complaints and annoyance, and soon after, the voices of conversation rang out one after another. Hearing this chaotic conversation, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. She didn't expect so many people to arrive before them. Wife, could the reason why they can't enter be because of this stone? Di Beichan raised his eyebrows. If the stone was pointing to this place, then it was very possible. I don't know, Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. Let's go take a look first. Maybe we'll meet our teammates. The three of them smiled at each other and quickened their pace. After the three of them arrived, they noticed that there were more than 10 figures in their line of sight. At first glance, they noticed Di Xiaofeng's existence. Beichun, Hongzhuang, Yinju. The gentle voice was filled with surprise. Di Xiaofeng immediately stood up and looked at them with a smile. Chapter 4890. Big Brother. Di Beichun's handsome face also revealed a joyful smile. Are you alone? Di Xiaofeng shook his head and pointed to the other side. Qianqian and Taxing are also here. At the same time, Lin Qianqian and Lin Taxing also quickly walked over. Di Beichun, Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to be so lucky to have gathered together so early. Lin Qianqian's face was filled with a surprised smile. Although she had not known Di Beichun and the others for a long time, she had a very good impression of them, so she was not unfamiliar with them at all. We also met not long ago, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Your luck is also very good. Don't mention it. I've been traveling alone all this time. I basically didn't meet any familiar cultivators along the way. The only people I met were from a Xiao family. Just thinking about it makes me sick. Lin Qianqian shook her head and sighed, looking very unlucky. She used to have a good impression of the Xiao family, but after this incident, she was full of disgust for them. Then you didn't fight with them, right? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. No. Lin Qianqian shrugged. Although we are now rivals, we used to have a good relationship. So, we didn't say anything and just went around each other. That's pretty straightforward. Have you met any other cultivators? Lin Taxing looked at Di Beichun and lowered his voice. I heard that the Jun family and the Xiao family haven't found Jun Lingxuan and Xiao So yet. I don't know where they went. Long before entering the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, they had already reached a consensus. As long as they met Jun Lingxuan and the others, they must find a way to deal with them. The younger generation's problems should be solved by the younger generation. If they could solve this big problem here, it was tantamount to doing a lot of help to the family. We met them, Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Lin Taxing and the others were all stunned. They immediately pulled Di Beichun and the other two to the side. You met them? Did anything happen? Di Xiaofeng's eyes were full of concern. Jun Zitao has been killed by us. Originally, we could have killed Jun Lingxuan and Xiao So together, but Xiao So had an escape talisman, so they escaped. Di Beichun said concisely. Following his words, Di Xiaofeng and the other two's eyes were filled with astonishment. What? Lin Qianqian couldn't help but raise her voice. When she realized her surroundings, she quickly covered her mouth. Jun Zitao is dead. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Xiao. Lin Qianqian stared at Di Beichun and the other two with wide eyes. How did you do it? Not only Lin Qianqian, but Di Xiaofeng and Lin Taxing also looked at Di Beichun and the other two with surprise. They were worried that Di Beichun and the other two would be at a disadvantage, but they didn't expect that the ones who fled were Jun Zitao and the other two. Although they were extremely disgusted with Jun Zitao and the other two, after so many years of dealing with them, they knew their strength. Logically speaking, Di Beichun and the other two shouldn't be a match for Jun Zitao and the other two. How could the result be the complete opposite? They were no match for us, so they fled. Di Beichun looked calm, as if he was talking about the excellent weather today. Chapter 4891. It's mainly because my wife is powerful. She beat them to the point that they couldn't resist. When Yunju and I appeared later, we basically didn't have to do anything, and they had already fled. Di Beichun's lips curled up slightly, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. His charming black eyes were full of pride. Are you kidding us? Di Xiaofeng and the other two stared at Di Beichun in a daze. They felt helpless in their hearts. Why didn't they notice that Di Beichun had the bad habit of showing off his love before? The pride between his eyebrows was obviously showing off that he had a good wife. What Beichun said is true. Mo Yunjue said quietly again. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Di Xiaofeng and the others changed again. If it was only Di Beichun who said this, They would think that Di Baichen was joking because he was in a good mood. However, Imo Yunjue was different. According to their understanding, Imo Yunjue was a person who didn't joke. Since even he said so, could it be that all this was true? Are you sure? Lin Qianqian's eyes widened in disbelief. Then she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and explained, Hongzhuang, I don't mean to look down on you, but isn't this too unbelievable? Did you really beat them up single-handedly? Lin Qianqian looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with burning eyes. Previously, she only knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy skills were extremely powerful, but she didn't have much expectation for her cultivation. Although she was very surprised that Bailey Hongzhuang could persist on the deck, according to the situation she learned, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation shouldn't be very high. In any case, with this cultivation, let alone dealing with Jun Lingxuan and the other two, it wouldn't be easy to deal with one person. It's not that exaggerated. I was also in danger before. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It was the first time she saw Lin Qianqian like this, and it was very interesting. Now I feel that you are Yi's biological sister. It turns out that your personalities are similar. When Yang Ming saw Lin Qianqian before, she had always been calm, which was in sharp contrast to Lin Yi's character. At that time, she had thought that the two sisters' personalities were poles apart, but now that she saw Lin Qianqian's current appearance, she felt that they were indeed sisters. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Lin Qianqian blushed and looked a little embarrassed. She then turned to Imo Yunjue and said, Yunjue, I didn't expect that even you would fall. When we arrived, Jun Zitao was indeed heavily injured and had no strength to fight back. If it wasn't for Jun Lingxuan using some underhanded tricks, Hongzhuang would have finished him off. Imo Yunjue looked indifferent. His cold face was like ice without any temperature. His voice was calm as he stated a fact. Seeing this, Lin Qianqian and the other two couldn't help but look at each other. They gradually began to accept this reality in their hearts. I'm afraid all this is not a joke. It's all true. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect your combat power to be so strong. I really underestimated you before. Lin Taxing stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. His handsome face was full of exclamation and surprise. He then turned to Di Baichun and said, Baichun, you are really lucky to marry a good wife. Di Xiaofeng chuckled. Taxing, then you have to follow this standard to find a wife in the future. Chapter 4892. Everyone was completely helpless. After their understanding, they realized that Di Baichun was really a wife-flaunting maniac. Pervert. Di Xiaofeng rolled his eyes and spat out two words. Di Baichun looked indifferent. After all, these people were still unmarried, so it was normal for them to be jealous of him. Just as Di Baichun and the others were talking, a voice suddenly sounded behind them. Di Baichun, did you guys meet my big sister? Xiao Sudong's eyes fell on Di Baichun's body. As early as when he saw a group of people sneaking around and talking, he felt that something was wrong. When he got closer, he heard the words about the Xiao family. He immediately connected all the dots in his mind. Xiao Sudong, we're not very familiar with you, so why should we tell you? Lin Qianqian's face was full of disgust. Even if they had a good relationship with Xiao Sudong before, now that both sides had completely fallen out, their previous friendship was naturally gone. What's more, during the alchemy competition, Xiao Sudong's attitude towards them was not polite at all. I'm asking Di Baichun. Xiao Sudong glanced coldly. I clearly heard you guys mention the Xiao family just now. Do you still want to night now? I'm saying that I felt unlucky to meet you guys on the way. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Lin Qianqian was not polite at all. She directly stepped forward, forcing Xiao Sudong to step back. After taking another step back, Xiao Sudong steadied his body and looked at Lin Qianqian with dissatisfaction. I see that you feel unlucky. Then why did you run over here? Everyone here is our people, and they feel that you're an eyesore. Are you here to be beaten? The continuous questioning made Xiao Sudong speechless for a moment. As a man, he really couldn't win against this woman. After seeing Xiao Sudong's situation, the cultivators of the Jun family also came over. Young Master Xiao, what happened? The Jun family's disciples' eyes fell on Deep Beichin and the others, with a hint of warning. Xiao Sudong was originally lacking in confidence, but after seeing the disciples of the Jun family, his confidence suddenly increased a lot. In fact, he was also quite depressed. There were many cultivators gathered in front of this building, but he was the only disciple of the Xiao clan. On the contrary, Di Beichin and the others had a total of 6 people. If they really fought, they wouldn't be a match for him. Fortunately, there were 3 cultivators from the Jun family. Although they were still less than the number of cultivators from the Di family, at least they had the ability to deal with the situation. I heard them mention my eldest sister and young Master Jun's names, and I wanted to ask them if they had met them. Xiao Sudong also had some doubts in his heart. Logically speaking, if his elder sister and Di Beichin and the others met, they would inevitably fight. Based on this situation, the winner should be Big Sister and the others. But if that was the case, Di Beichin and the others would not have come here unscathed. Hearing this, the eyes of the Jun family's disciples lit up. Their leader was Jun Lingxuan. They had not been able to find Jun Lingxuan, and they felt a little uneasy. Although most of the cultivators were still scattered, it was obvious that many people had gathered here. Chapter 4893. Is this true? The gazes of the Jun family's disciples fell on Di Beichin and the others, revealing unfriendliness and suspicion. In my opinion, it should be fake, right? Jun Shenbin said slowly. If they really met, Ling Sun would have already dealt with them. Why would he let them appear here? Jun Shenbin's face was full of disdain. When he first heard the news, he was also a little surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, it was probably impossible. As Jun Shenbin's voice fell, Xiao Sudong also nodded. Actually, I think the same as you. It's definitely impossible for them to meet. As he spoke, Xiao Sudong no longer had his previous persistence. He only felt that perhaps it was because he wanted to know the whereabouts of his elder sister so much that he didn't even consider the most basic thing clearly. If they didn't meet, then just say that they didn't meet. Why do you have to pretend to be so mysterious? Xiao Sudong looked at Lin Qianqian with disdain and mocked. Xiao Sudong, don't be so proud. Lin Qianqian rolled her eyes. To tell you the truth, Beichin and the others not only met Xiao Sou, but also met Jun Lingxuan and Jun Shitao. Xiao Sudong and the others who were about to leave stopped after hearing Lin Qianqian's words and turned to stare at her. However, the result is not what you think. Lin Qianqian spread out her hands and shrugged. The ones who fled were not Beichin and the others, but Xiao Sou and the others. What kind of joke are you making? Xiao Sudong snorted coldly, his face full of sarcasm. If you made it up, I might believe it. Now you're saying that my elder sister and young Master Jun are no match for Di Beichin and the others? Haha, don't make a fool of yourself with such lies. Jun Shenbing also laughed. When Ling Sun appears later, your lies will be exposed. Wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? Looking at the expressions of Xiao Sudong and the others, Di Xiaofeng's face also darkened. At this time, Di Beichin's magnetic and flat voice sounded, I didn't expect that Xiao Sou would have such a treasure like the escape talisman. I really underestimated you. Xiao Sudong, who had been laughing extremely exaggeratedly, suddenly froze after hearing this. How did you know? The escape talisman was given to Xiao Sou by his father before they entered the immortal cloud mystic realm. The only people who knew about this were Xiao Sou and him. Other than them, no one else knew. Even the other disciples of the Xiao clan did not know about this matter. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Di Beichin to know. Could it be that what Di Beichin said was true? Xiao Sou crushed the escape talisman and left. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. Xiao Sudong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, his mind full of thoughts. Before mentioning the escape talisman, he did not believe it at all. But now he had no choice but to believe it. He must have encountered it before. Because I think it must be the 3 of you who attacked my elder sister. That's why such a situation happened? Xiao Sudong's face turned ashen. I didn't expect you to be so despicable, bullying her with numbers. Chapter 4894. My big sister isn't here right now, so you can say whatever you want. When my big sister appears, I'll see if you can continue to lie. Xiao Sudong's face was full of disbelief. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't think that you're so great after being in the limelight in the alchemy competition. Don't you feel embarrassed to blow your own trumpet like this? That's right, Miss Xiao and our Jun Lingxuan. Don't tell me our strength can't be compared to you people from the lower realm. It's simply a fantasy story. Jun Chenbin's face was full of disdain. He felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were too funny. Even if it was to show off their own ability, they shouldn't have made up such a flawed lie. I'm blowing my own trumpet. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. It's up to you to believe it or not, but you should recognize this thing, right? As her voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a storage ring. What storage ring? Xiao Sudong frowned. I've never seen it before. However, when Jun Chenbin saw the storage ring, his face suddenly changed, and a deep shock appeared in his eyes. They were no stranger to this storage ring. This was clearly Jun Zitao's storage ring. Although storage rings looked similar, they grew up with Jun Zitao since they were young, so they were very familiar with his storage ring. How can Zitao's storage ring be with you? Jun Chenbin's face was full of horror. He knew very well that a cultivator storage ring couldn't appear in other places. Once it appeared in other places, there was only one possibility. He was dead. Jun Zitao was dead? When this thought appeared in the minds of the Jun family's disciples, they all felt that it was simply impossible. In any case, Jun Zitao couldn't be dead. What's more, they encountered Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Could it be that the combined strength of the three of them was stronger than Jun Lingxuan and the other two? After hearing this, Xiao Sudong couldn't help but be stunned. What did you say? This is Zitao's storage ring? Why are you here? Don't you already know? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked. Impossible, Jun Chenbin said firmly. This is absolutely impossible. Believe it or not. Di Beichen looked coldly at Jun Chenbin. We don't have time to deal with you. Do as you please. With that, Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to the other side. It's useless to talk to them. In any case, they have already decided in their hearts. In the end, when Jun Lingxuan and the others appeared, these guys naturally knew. Di Xiaofeng and the others also followed after seeing Di Beichen's actions. However, Jun Chenbin and the others did not give up and followed closely behind. Di Beichen, explain yourself. Di Beichen looked at the angry Jun Chenbin in front of him, and a trace of coldness appeared on his beautiful face. Do you want to fight? If you want to fight, we'll accompany you to the end. Her calm words didn't contain any emotions, but when they fell into the ears of Jun Chenbin and the others, they were filled with killing intent. Obviously, if they dared to continue questioning, Di Beichen wouldn't mind killing them personally. Seeing this, Xiao Sudong couldn't help but say, Jun Chenbin, why don't we go back first? Maybe after a while, elder sister and the others will appear. Chapter 4895. After Xiao Sudong and the others left, Di Xiaofeng could not help but sigh. These guys really won't shed tears until they see the coffin. They'll understand sooner or later. If it weren't for the fact that there are too many cultivators gathered here, I would have taken care of them directly. Lin Taxing's eyes were filled with disgust. He really did not have a good impression of these guys. Di Beichen nodded slightly. He also noticed that there were many cultivators gathered around. While they were arguing, the surrounding gazes were all fixed on them. Presumably, everyone was itching for them to fight so that they could reap the benefits of the third party. By the way, Big Brother, why are so many of you gathered here? Di Beichen's deep and charming eyes revealed a contemplative light. For this point, Di Beichen had always been somewhat unable to understand. Logically speaking, it was impossible for all the cultivators who entered the Immortal Cloud's secret realm to gather in the same place, since they could not tell the direction. However, when they arrived, there were dozens of cultivators gathered here. It was simply unbelievable. We were also attracted by the light that appeared in the ruins, Di Xiaofeng slowly said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally understood that the ruins would flash with a dazzling white light every 4 hours, attracting all the surrounding cultivators. Deep Beichin and the others had come here because they had seen this dazzling light. When I first arrived, there weren't so many cultivators. However, this building has attracted more and more people recently. Emperor Xiaofeng revealed a helpless expression. I was hoping to enter this building to find some treasures while no one else knew about it. I didn't expect that even though more and more people have come, I still haven't found a way to enter. Can't find a way to enter? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Is it because the door can't be opened? That's right. Lin Xianxian nodded. This building is really too strange. Although there's a door, I can't find a mechanism no matter how hard I search. Look, there are many people fumbling around over there. However, we've searched the entire area and couldn't find any mechanism at all. Not only that, we tried to break through the door, but no matter how we attacked, it was useless. The defensive power of this door is too strong. It's not something we can break through with our strength. Lin Taxing sighed helplessly. After being in the immortal cloud mystic realm for so long, he had not gained anything. His only hope lay in this building. Who would have thought that he would not be able to enter it? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at the entrance of the building. As expected, many cultivators were looking around, trying to find a way in. Di Beichin and Mo Yunjue couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Their minds were filled with thoughts of that rock. Perhaps that rock was the way to enter. Sensing their gazes, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head quietly. I keep feeling that this place is a little strange. It seems to be different from what I thought before. Although she had come here based on the stone's reaction, after seeing this building, she had a strange feeling in her heart. Chapter 4896. What's the difference? Di Beichin wrinkled his beautiful eyebrows and asked. For Bailey Hongzhuang's intuition, he had always believed in it. Since Hongzhuang had such an idea, there must be something else going on behind the scenes. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I don't know what the problem is, but give me some time and I'll figure it out. What's going on? Listening to the conversation between Di Beichin and Bailey Hongzhuang, a trace of doubt appeared in Lin Xianxian's eyes. All right, Beichin, didn't you see the light coming from the building? Did you come here by coincidence? No. Di Beichin shook his head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang before continuing. Actually, Hongzhuang found a stone when she was in the lower realm. We followed the stone's reaction and came here. The stone was a secret to them, but Di Xiaofeng and the other two were trustworthy people, so he didn't plan to hide it. After all, they were a team after entering the immortal cloud secret realm. Stone? Di Xiaofeng was stunned. A stone from the lower realm? Lin Xianxian was also shocked. A stone from the lower realm is related to the building in the immortal cloud secret realm? Hongzhuang, you're too lucky, aren't you? Normally, although there would be things in the upper realm that would fall to the lower realm, the chances were not high. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang was able to find something in the upper realm that resonated with the stone. The chances were not small at all. Actually, I didn't expect it to be like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. But this is still a clue. Maybe we can find something. Of course, Di Xiaofeng's eyes lit up. Since it can be used to sense something, it must be useful. You guys rest here for a while. We'll check the area around the door and see if we can find a way to enter, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Since they were already here, she naturally had to check it out. She naturally wanted to know the secret of the stone. Moreover, she always felt that the stone was fated with her. You guys go ahead. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Although there are many cultivators here, there are also many forces. Normally, there won't be any danger. Hearing this, Di Beichin and the other two didn't say anything else and turned and walked towards the front of the building. As they gradually approached the white, holy building, the power of light shone on the three. It was warm and made them feel comfortable. The power of light really gives me a comfortable feeling. Di Beichin smiled lightly. No matter when, the light was always what everyone yearned for. Maybe this building is the inheritance of a light attribute cultivator. Di Beichin raised his eyebrows. subconsciously looking at Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, they felt the legacy in Bailey Hongzhuang was the most. If the legacy? After walking to the front of the door, many cultivators around them looked at the three of them. However, their gazes only lingered for a short while before they looked away and continued to examine the door in front of them. This building is really strange. After attracting everyone here, we can't find the entrance at all. I've already looked at every corner of the door. There's nothing special at all. Chapter 4897. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two approached, they began to look around for the mechanism to enter. Although the other cultivators had already searched all around the ruins these days, they still paid careful attention to everything. There might be something they missed. After Jun Qinbin and Xiao Sudong left the location of Di Beichun and the others, they returned to the territory they occupied before. Jun Qinbin, are you sure you didn't see wrong? That storage ring really belongs to Jun Shitao? Xiao Sudong still couldn't believe it. After all, Jun Shitao was the second young master of the Jun family, and his strength was also extremely outstanding. He couldn't believe that Jun Shitao would die at the hands of Di Beichun and the others. Jun Chanbin and the other two Jun family disciples' faces were extremely ugly, and for a moment, they were also somewhat uneasy. I remember very clearly that the storage ring belongs to Shitao. Jun Qinbin's face was gloomy. If Shitao really died at their hands, then we must avenge him. After getting an affirmative answer, Xiao Sudong's eyes flashed slightly. This result was really a bit shocking. Even if that's the case, they must have used despicable means to sneak attack Shitao. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible. Jun Qinbin's eyes were filled with haze. When he looked at Di Beichun and the others, the hatred on his face was even more undisguised. That's for sure. Xiao Sudong nodded. In my opinion, Jun Shitao must have been unlucky and was ambushed by the three of them. As for the other things, they must have made up a lie to scare us and make us panic. We can't fall into their trap. That's right. Jun Qinbin agreed, and then asked doubtfully, then what's the matter with this escape talisman? Xiao Sudong's expression was a bit complicated. Maybe they learned about it from other channels. Anyway, I don't believe what they said. We'll know when Xiao Sou and Ling Sun appear. I believe they should be attracted by this light soon. The Jun family disciple said. On the other side, after the three of them carefully examined the door of the building, they found that it was just as everyone said. They couldn't find any mechanism. I'm afraid there really isn't any mechanism here. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, if there is a trap, there are so many people here. Someone will accidentally touch it. Di Beichun nodded slightly, and his gaze fell on the keyhole in front of the main door. Wife, could the stone in your hand be the key? There was only one keyhole in the entire door, but it was obvious that no one had the key. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the keyhole and compared it with the stone in her hand. In the end, she shook her head. Although this keyhole is similar to the stone, it is not the same. The stone should not be the key. Hearing this, Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue were also puzzled. They were attracted by the stone, but they didn't expect that the stone wasn't the key. Don't worry, as long as the door is opened, we will definitely find the secret of this stone, Mo Yunjue said slowly. The three of them didn't give up and looked around the entire building before choosing to give up. When Di Xiaofeng and the others saw Bailey Hongzhuang coming back, they couldn't help but ask, do you have any clues? Chapter 4898. I knew it. Di Xiaofeng revealed a look of understanding. When I first came here, I had been studying this point. However, after studying for 3 whole days, I still didn't gain anything, so I gave up. Hongzhuang, did your stone have any effect as well? Lin Qianqian asked. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and shook her head. It is not the key to opening this building. Hearing this, Lin Qianqian's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. I see. It seems that there is no other way now. Lin Taxing sighed. In my opinion, we can only wait here now. Speaking of which, this place is really strange. Recently, it has been attracting more and more cultivators. Could it be that it wants to attract all the cultivators around here? Di Xiaofeng revealed a puzzled expression. He had never understood the purpose of this building. At least, many cultivators who want to take the treasure for themselves will not be able to succeed. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. What if this building never opens? Lin Qianqian frowned. She was not worried about anything else, but this was what she was most worried about. If this building never opened, wouldn't they be wasting time here? Hearing this, everyone could not help but fall into silence. Regarding this point, everyone really could not judge the result. It shouldn't be. Di Beichen's handsome face was full of contemplation. I think this building will definitely open. Let's wait here patiently for a while. Everyone nodded. After all, if they were to leave like this, no one would be willing to. What's wrong with Xiaohe and Xiaobai? Di Xiaofeng found that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have Xiaohe, who was usually chattering beside her. After searching for a while, he found Xiaohe and Xiaobai sleeping on the White Lion's back. White Lion's fur was very long. In addition, he was deliberately wrapping Xiaohe and Xiaobai. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to tell. Bailey Hongzhuang looked a little sad. When we were fighting with Jun Lingxuan and the others, after she explained everything, Di Xiaofeng and the others finally understood what was going on. I didn't expect Jun Lingxuan and the others to go so far. Lin Qianqian looked angry. Although I didn't have a good impression of Xiao So in the past, I didn't hate her either. I didn't expect things to turn out this way. Birds of a feather flock together. How are Xiaohe and Xiao Bai doing now? Di Xiaofeng's gaze was a little heavy. He knew how Di Beichen felt about Xiaohe and Xiao Bai. If something happened to Xiaohe and Xiao Bai, then, fortunately, Xiaohe and Xiao Bai's lives are not in danger. However, they're now in a deep slumber, and we don't know when they will wake up. It's good as long as they are fine, Lin Taxing said and sighed at his heart. Most people would not be able to save themselves from self-destruction. He really did not know how these two contracted beasts did it. After discovering that they could not find a way to enter the building, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others no longer focused. Instead, they began to cultivate in peace and patiently waited for the door to open. During this cultivation process, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that the speed of cultivating the light energy was much faster than usual. She was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 4899. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. In these 7 days, more and more cultivators gathered nearby. Almost every day, more and more cultivators would gather here. In just 7 days, the number of cultivators gathered here had doubled compared to when they originally wanted to arrive. More than 200 cultivators had gathered here. There were still many cultivators who did not give up and continued to search for a way to enter. However, even more cultivators chose to give up. If we continue to stay here, we might end up wasting our time here. That's right. We've been here for half a month, and this building hasn't reacted at all. Perhaps the purpose of this building is to attract our attention. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm unwilling, I would have already left. As everyone waited longer and longer, the voices of dissatisfaction also increased. Many cultivators felt that this building was actually a waste of everyone's time. However, even though there were many complaints, no one chose to leave in the end. This was because no one knew if the building would open up after they left. Such a holy and glorious building. It was obvious that there were many treasures inside. Perhaps their harvest from searching in the Immortal Cloud's secret realm for an entire year couldn't even compare to the harvest from this building. These few days, more and more people have gathered here. I feel that if we continue to wait here, perhaps all the cultivators will be here by themselves. Di Xiaofeng sighed. He really felt helpless about this situation. Now that so many cultivators have gathered here, I still haven't received any news about Ling Xiao. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. In these 7 days, many cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family had gathered. Their group could be considered very large. At the very least, if they stayed here, no other group would dare to covet them. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and the others' eyes were filled with worry. Ling Xiao should be fine. Currently, We haven't heard any news about him from other cultivators. This should be good news, Bewitching said slowly. In the process of waiting, a few cultivators from the AO family appeared around them. Fortunately, they didn't get any news about AO Ling Xiao from these cultivators. Based on the current situation, no news was good news. AO Junkwang hasn't appeared yet. This is really strange. Lin Taxing raised his eyebrows, looking a little puzzled. Now the leaders of each force have basically appeared, but Jun Lingxuan, Xiao Sou, and AO Junkwang have not appeared. In my opinion, I'm afraid that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou won't be able to appear. The level of that escape talisman is not low. It must have teleported them to a place far away. Even if they wanted to rush over, it would not be a matter of time. I plan to wait for 2 more days. If I still don't get anything, I'll leave. Di Xiao Feng muttered. It wasn't a good idea to continue staying here. Even if the building would open up after he left, he would just accept it and take it as his bad luck. Seeing Emperor Xiaofeng make this decision so quickly, everyone was a little surprised, but thinking about it carefully, this was not a bad decision. Chapter 4900. Following the appearance of this ray of light, everyone's gaze changed and their eyes were filled with anticipation. Is the door about to open? Such a rich light. I feel as if my entire body has been cleansed and bathed in the power of the light. Luckily I haven't left yet. Otherwise, I would have missed such a good opportunity. For a moment, all the cultivators present revealed joyful smiles, and all their previous complaints disappeared into nothingness at this moment. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze focused on the building that was blooming with supreme brilliance. Then, she noticed that the door that had been tightly shut was finally showing signs of opening. Seeing this, Di Beichin and the others' eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Almost all the cultivators approached the door at the first moment. Everyone knew that the sooner they entered, the greater their harvest. Let's go in quickly. Daiheowen's eyes were filled with joy, but his voice was tinged with anxiety. At this moment, the slightest hesitation could cause them to miss a good opportunity. Everyone nodded and immediately quickened their pace as they approached the door. Rumble. The door opened on its own and made a dull sound. Everyone rushed into the ruins like a swarm of bees. Their speed was pushed to the limit as they were afraid of being left behind. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not slow either as they quickly entered. As soon as they entered, everyone realized that the building was extremely large and there were 2 forks in the road. There were more than 30 cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family in total. After seeing this situation, everyone chose to split up without hesitation. Let's split up here. Those who are familiar with each other should form a team and take care of each other. Di Xiaofeng quickly said, Safety first. Don't lose your life for the treasure. Everyone, remember this clearly. Lin Taxing also said, Let's go. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. No one was willing to waste any time while fighting for the treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, and Mo Yunjue naturally walked towards one of the passages. Di Xiaofeng originally planned to lead the other members of the Di family, but thinking that Daiheowen was there, he chose Di Beichun and the other 2. After all, before they left, her family had repeatedly reminded her to take good care of Beichun and Hongzhuang. The speed of the 4 of them was not slow. Although they were not the first to enter, their speed still surpassed most of the cultivators. This building was no different from the layout of the ruins that Bailey Hongzhuang had seen before. There were still rooms here. The only difference was that this place was dazzling with gold and jade, and it was as bright as day inside. Everywhere was filled with holy radiance. Walking here, everyone's hearts seemed to have been cleansed, and they were filled with awe and respect. When everyone passed by the first room, they found that many cultivators had already gathered inside. At this moment, a fight had already broken out for the treasure. The sound of fighting mixed with the sound of wind breaking could be heard incessantly. The other cultivators had even blocked the door, making it impossible to see what was inside. Seeing this scene, the 4 of them continued to move forward without hesitation. They did not want to waste any time here. This was because they all knew that the deeper they went in the ruins, the higher the value of the treasure. Chapter 4901. Of course, there were many cultivators who had the same idea as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Everyone rushed forward without hesitation. Regardless of whether it was the top cultivators cultivated by the major families or the major forces, the difference in strength was not very big. If anyone could obtain an excellent treasure or inheritance, they could completely crush the other cultivators. Therefore, this kind of opportunity was everyone's dream. Every time this happens, I feel that I shouldn't have put all my energy into cultivating my movement technique, Di Xiaofeng lamented as he flew forward. The competition in the upper realm is indeed fierce, and Mo Yunjue said quietly. His cold voice still did not have any warmth. Finally, the four of them arrived at a room. When they opened the door and saw what was inside, even with their experience, they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Oh my God! Di Xiaofeng's face was filled with shock. Am I seeing things? Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, as well as Bai Shi and Xiao Xuanzi, stared at the scene in a daze. Bodhi fruit, thousand silk leaf, colored glaze water, these are all rare treasures, and they're all piled up here. How terrifying is the heritage of the owner of this ruin? Di Xiaofeng did not know how to express his feelings at this moment. He always knew that the owner of this ruin must have accumulated a lot of treasures throughout his life, but the treasures in front of him were too terrifying. This had gone beyond the scope of heroism. This was a treasure trove. If such treasures appeared in a ruin, he would already be shocked. However, this was only a room in this ruin, and there were so many things. Then, how many treasures would there be in this ruin? Don't think about it. Quickly put these treasures away. Di Beichun reminded everyone, then said, Xiao Xuanzi, guard outside the room. Alert us if anyone comes near. Understood. Xiao Xuanzi quickly nodded and acted as a sentinel. In the past, this kind of task was usually given to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. However, Xiao He and Xiao Bai had fallen into a deep sleep, so this task naturally fell on Xiao He's shoulders. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't delay any longer. They immediately put away the treasures as fast as they could. At the same time, every room in the ruins was filled with a dazzling array of treasures, causing every cultivator who entered to be pleasantly surprised. Master, someone's coming. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three kept the treasures into their Qingquan bags, Xiao Xuanzi's voice rang out. Then, Jun Qinbin and the others appeared before everyone's eyes. It's really a small world, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, her eyes falling on Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sudong. The other party obviously didn't expect Di Beichun and the others to be here. A trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. Although their eyes were filled with desire, they didn't plan to make a move. After all, whether it was Di Xiaofeng or Di Beichun, their strength couldn't be underestimated. Without enough confidence, they couldn't make a move rashly. Most importantly, wasting time here was undoubtedly the most uneconomical thing to do. Let's go. Xiao Sudong glanced coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, then immediately turned and left. In response, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others ignored him and walked out of the room. Chapter 4902. As they advanced, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that the scope of the ruins was not ordinary, and the number of treasures inside was even more shocking. Later on, there were very few conflicts between cultivators, because there were other unexplored rooms waiting for them. This is the first time in my life that I've seen a ruin with so many treasures. If I didn't experience it myself, even if someone told me, I wouldn't believe it. Di Xiaofeng's dark and bright eyes were filled with indescribable astonishment. Even if all of this really happened in front of him, he still couldn't believe it and only felt that it was a dream. Indeed, the number of treasures here is a bit too shocking. Di Beichun's deep eyes flickered with contemplation. It seems like someone piled all the treasures here, but didn't set up any obstacles at all. This is completely different from what we encountered before. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I don't know why, but although the journey has been very smooth, I vaguely feel that something isn't right. From the lower realm to the upper realm, she had seen a few ruins. The treasures in the lower realm naturally couldn't be compared to the upper realm, but the owner of the ruins should have the same idea. Only cultivators who were recognized could receive his inheritance, but this wasn't reflected at all in this ruin. It seemed like someone had piled up a treasure trove and was just waiting for everyone to share the spoils. Perhaps it was because it was too easy to get, so it felt strange. I also feel that it's a bit strange, Bewitching frowned, but I can't figure out what the problem is. Could it be that we're thinking too much? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but say, the owner of this ruin is of the light attribute. Maybe his personality is just that generous. Hearing this, the four of them looked at each other. Although they also felt that this reason was ridiculous, they couldn't think of any other reason other than this. Hongzhuang, after we entered the ruin, did the stone react? Mo Yunju asked. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head no. Originally, the stone had some reaction when they were outside, but after entering the ruin, the stone no longer had any reaction. Regarding this, she also felt that it was very strange. However, this also made her understand that the stone really had nothing to do with this ruin. As for why it attracted her before, she also didn't understand. Perhaps after leaving the ruin, she would have a chance to figure it out. In this ruin, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others obtained some treasures. During this journey, all the cultivators that they met had smiles on their faces, and they couldn't control the joy in their hearts. With these treasures, they would be able to improve their cultivation and surpass other cultivators. How could they not be happy? Finally, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the main hall. When they arrived, they found where many cultivators were gathered. At this moment, the door of the main hall was closed, and the two paths finally converged at the same place. Xiaofeng's, Di Xiaofeng, Di Beichun, Di Xiaofeng's, and Di Xiaofeng Shaf. Di Xiaofeng nodded. The treasures in this ruin are truly shocking. Just by looking at your expression, I can tell that you've had a great harvest. Chapter 4903. Hearing Lin Chanqian's words, even the cultivators beside Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but nod in agreement. All the waiting was worth it. Just these rewards alone would allow me to leave the Immortal Cloud's secret realm without any regrets. Di Xiaofeng's handsome face was filled with a warm smile. Even if he told his family about this, they would not believe him. Haha, that's right. Lin Taxing was also in a good mood. The main hall is so big. Maybe there are precious treasures inside. When we leave later, let's not split up. Once we leave the relic, the battle will begin. Di Beichun reminded everyone. Now, everyone's hearts were filled with joy and they had neglected other things. Hearing this, everyone immediately understood Di Beichun's meaning and nodded in agreement. In the relic, everyone was busy looking for gains and naturally did not have the opportunity to covet other people's treasures. However, once they left the relic, the situation would be different. Everyone had a lot of precious treasures. If there were few people or they were alone, they would likely become the target of others. Fortunately, there were many cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family who had entered the relic. Ordinary people would not dare to target them. Xiaofeng, you're here. A familiar voice rang out. Then, everyone saw Murong Jing appear. Murong, you're here too. Di Xiaofeng was overjoyed. Why didn't I see you before? I was lucky. I just arrived when the relic opened. Ha! Murong Jing could not hide the joy in his voice and laughed cheerfully. I see. You're really lucky. Di Xiaofeng nodded with a smile. Let's have a good gathering later. Murong Jing nodded and looked at the closed door of the main hall. Now, everyone was most concerned about the main hall. However, as everyone tried to break the door of the main hall, it did not work. It's the same as the door. There are no mechanisms, and we can't open it. A cultivator's voice rang out, full of helplessness and disappointment. Why don't we try to attack the door together and blast it open? Nangong Yuqing's voice resounded, rallying everyone. Nangong Yuqing was the most outstanding cultivator of the Nangong family. His strength was outstanding, so his appeal was naturally strong. Hearing his call, the group of cultivators nodded one after another. After all, everyone wanted to know what kind of treasure was in the main hall. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't pay any attention to it. They were Nangong Yuqing's opponents, so why would they respond to his call? That was naturally impossible. Naturally, Nangong Yuqing also noticed Di Beichen. In fact, with Di Beichen's outstanding appearance and temperament, no matter how many people were around, it was still difficult to ignore his existence. Di Beichen, are you not going to make a move? Nangong Yuqing glanced over. If you don't do anything, then the treasures in the main hall will have nothing to do with you. As soon as he said that, everyone's eyes fell on Di Beichen. Chapter 4904. Nangong Yuqing. According to what you're saying, as long as no one makes a move, they won't get a share of the treasures in the main hall. Di Beichen sneered. Who do you think you are? Why should you be the one to make the rules? What's more, there's so many cultivators here. I'm afraid it's impossible for all of us to make a move together, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Although the main hall wasn't small, it was impossible for all the cultivators to make a move together. Most importantly, they were inside the ruins. If they made a move together, no one would be able to bear the consequences. Originally, the crowd didn't pay much attention to Nangong Yuqing's words, but after hearing Di Beichen's words, they all frowned. That's right. Making a move isn't a big deal. Isn't it too complicated? Some of the cultivators standing far away from the main hall expressed their dissatisfaction. Nangong Yuqing, why don't you make a move? We'll make a move instead. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile. Nangong Yuqing, who originally wanted to cause trouble for Di Beichen, saw that the situation was completely different from what he had expected. His expression became gloomy. You're the young master of the Di family. It's normal for you to make a move. I will make a move. What will you do about it? Di Beichen's lips curved into an evil smile. His calm appearance revealed an evil and domineering aura. His handsome face became even more charming. Just one look from him was enough to captivate a person's soul. Looking at Di Beichen like this, all the women present had an infatuated look in their eyes. Such a handsome man was truly fascinating. You. Nangong Yuqing's face was filled with anger, but facing Di Beichen, he really couldn't do anything. After all, Di Beichen's identity, status, and family background weren't inferior to his. Most importantly, there were many cultivators from the Di family and Lin family here. Once a conflict broke out, the result would be uncertain. Di Beichen just looked at Nangong Yuqing. This guy seemed to have forgotten what happened last time and was looking for trouble again. After seeing this scene, the cultivators from the Nangong family quietly reminded Nangong Yuqing that there was no benefit in making a move against Di Beichen. Nangong Yuqing coldly snorted and gave Di Beichen a fierce look before ignoring him. Once he left the ruins, he would find a way to teach Di Beichen a lesson. Boom! Everyone's attack was aimed at the main hall's door. Is the door. Seeing this, another group of cultivators joined in the attack, but the door still did not respond. And we. Too, in my opinion, this situation is quite possible. Everyone began to ponder. They really couldn't see through this ruin. Just as everyone was talking and guessing how to enter the main hall, a sound suddenly came from the main hall's door. Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to the main hall. Their eyes were burning with anticipation. Creak. Chapter 4905. Within their line of sight, the Great Hall was filled with a shocking number of treasures. It was a dazzling array of treasures that blinded their eyes. If I'm not mistaken, that should be the blood essence of a dragon, right? Heavens, that's the phoenix blood fruit. Isn't that the long-lost Book of Chaos? Cries of surprise rang out. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. Such a treasure had completely exceeded their expectations. Almost immediately, everyone wanted to charge into the Great Hall. However, they were all blocked by an invisible barrier. However, It was because of this barrier that everyone had time to see the treasures in the Great Hall. The blood essence of a dragon. It said that after using it to refine one's body, one's physical body would become extremely powerful. Its defensive power would be comparable to a demonic beast's. There are very few dragons in the dragon clan. Their blood essence is even more precious. It's almost impossible to obtain it on a normal day. The phoenix blood fruit is a fruit that grows near the phoenix. After consuming it, one's cultivation will increase tremendously. Furthermore, one's strength may even contain a trace of the phoenix's power. I've only heard of such a treasure. I've never thought that I would actually see it. The Book of Chaos. I've heard that it's an extremely high-level treasure. It's already beyond the scope of our knowledge. The Book of Chaos contains the laws of heaven and earth. As long as one can comprehend the Book of Chaos, one's power will increase rapidly. One can even break through the bottleneck and master the power of the laws. Although there's only one page in the Book of Chaos, it's already an unparalleled treasure. How could so many long-lost treasures be gathered here? This is simply too terrifying. Our luck is just too good. We've actually found so many treasures. In an instant, all the cultivators' hearts were captivated by the treasures before them. With these treasures, they would be able to surpass the majority of cultivators. As long as they obtain these treasures, they would become a new force to be reckoned with when they leave the divine cloud secret realm. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were stunned when they saw this scene. The shock on their faces was not much better than the other cultivators. The number of treasures here is simply too shocking. I'm really curious as to who the owner of this ruin is to have so many treasures in his possession. Di Xiaofeng's face was filled with shock. The treasures that he had previously obtained had already filled him with shock. Now, everything that he saw gave him a sense of disbelief. This is simply too shocking. I'm of the major family's knowledge of this ruin's existence. Lin Taxing could not help but sigh. If the major clans knew about the existence of this relic, it was likely that they would not have a chance to train in the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. Speaking of which, this Immortal Cloud secret realm has been opened many times already. But this time we actually encountered it. Our luck is really not bad. Lin Qianqian's face lit up. One's fortune was also related to one's luck. The fact that they were able to come here and obtain these rewards already proved that they were very lucky. The disciples of the Di clan and the Lin clan were equally delighted and eager to give it a try. Of the world, 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 of the divine, of the world, of the world, of the world, of the treasures, of the god, art, of the major of the world. Chapter 4906. Master, the treasures here are just too amazing. White Lion's eyes lit up with excitement. He had actually found treasures that could increase the power of his bloodline in this place. Such treasures were something that he could only come across by chance. He had never expected to find one here. This was a treasure trove. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Looking at the treasures in front of her, she did not know how to express her feelings. The things here were simply too rich and shocking, giving her a feeling of disbelief. Beichun, I don't know why, but after coming here, my intuition has become stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichun. Even though she was drooling over these treasures, there were simply too many of them. So many that she felt that they were all fake. Hongzhuang, you're thinking too much. These are all real. Lin Qianqian smiled when she heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Di Beichun's eyes darkened. My wife, do you suspect that this is an illusion? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Her deep eyes rippled with a thoughtful light. That might be the case. Don't you think that the treasures here are simply too unbelievable? There are indeed too many of them. Di Beichun replied in a low voice. However, based on the current situation, I feel that these treasures are all real. The treasures that we've just obtained are real. This is what I've never understood. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She had never understood this point, but the feeling in her heart was very obvious. She could vaguely sense that something was amiss. However, She could not pinpoint the source of the problem. Bailey Hongzhuang remained silent as she thought of this. Before she could figure out the source of the problem, her words would not be convincing. My wife, let's take a look first. Di Beichen did not doubt Bailey Hongzhuang's words. They should observe carefully before making a decision. Yes, under the expectant gazes of the crowd, the restriction grew fainter and fainter. Obviously, it wouldn't be long before the restriction completely dissipated. As the restriction grew fainter and fainter, the covetous look in everyone's eyes grew even more intense. All of their attention was focused on the treasure. In their minds, they had already begun to imagine the days after they obtained the treasures. At that time, they would definitely show off their might. It's fading, it's fading. The restriction is about to open. Get ready. Everyone was accumulating power, ready to fight for the treasures. Crack! As the restriction completely dissipated, all the cultivators rushed in at once. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not slow either. They rushed into the hall one after another. However, after entering the main hall, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that there was an invisible force affecting her. At the same time, a cold energy came from the stone, and her mind, which was gradually becoming crazy, was restored to its sobriety. After discovering this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with horror. She finally understood where the problem was, that she had always felt something was amiss. So it was here. Di Beichen had already snatched the Book of Chaos. His deep and enchanting eyes were filled with passion, and he could not hide the excitement on his face. So this is the Book of Chaos. Chapter 4907. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't figure out what the problem was. Looking at the treasure in front of her, she held it in her hand. Immediately after, she found that there was an uncontrollable excitement spreading from her mind. She couldn't contain this excitement at all. She kept thinking that as long as she could get this treasure, she would definitely have greater achievements in the future. It was because of this thought that a trace of madness flashed in her eyes. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang fell into madness, the power from the stone restored a trace of clarity in her eyes. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put the stone down. Her exquisite face was filled with horror. She looked at the treasure on the table in shock. She never thought that this treasure would have such a terrifying, bewitching power. When she turned her eyes again, she found that the cultivators around her had an abnormal blush on their faces. Their eyes were filled with madness, and they were no longer as calm as before. After discovering this, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly pulled Di Beichen back. Beichen, put this thing down. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen nervously. She was really worried that Di Beichen would be bewitched by this power. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen was also slightly stunned. Why? It's too late to explain now. If you believe me, put this thing down quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly said. Even though Di Beichen's heart was full of confusion, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he still chose to believe her. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang was the person he loved the most. She definitely wouldn't lie to him. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Xiaofeng and the others. Big brother, put it down quickly. Di Xiaofeng had just grabbed a treasure when he suddenly heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. He couldn't help but ask. It wasn't easy to get this treasure. How can I put down? Once this thing is brought back, its value will be astonishing. Big brother, just believe in Hongzhuang. He didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang did this, but he also noticed the anxiety on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Thinking about it, there must be very serious consequences for Bailey Hongzhuang to have such a reaction. Hongzhuang, are you crazy? You're giving up on such a treasure? Lin Qianqian was puzzled. Anyone would dream of having such a treasure. Most importantly, if they gave up on this treasure and the cultivators of other clans obtained it, then they would lose to the cultivators of other clans. This was something she absolutely did not want. There's something wrong with these treasures. Put them down. Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly said, and turned to look at Di Beichen and Imo Yunju. Tell our people to leave the main hall quickly. There's something strange here. Seeing this, Di Beichen pulled Di Xiaofeng and the others out of the main hall without hesitation. Di Xiaofeng and the others were unwilling. They only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's decision was too strange. Beichen, if you want to go out, then go out. We won't go out. Lin Taxing couldn't help but say. These precious treasures were right in front of him. He simply couldn't give them up. Chapter 4908. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the surrounding cultivators all looked at her with ridicule. Bailey Hongzhuang, you wouldn't say such words just because you want to keep it for yourself, right? Nangong Yuqing sneered. Do you think anyone will believe you at a time like this? It's up to you to believe me or not. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold. She really didn't want to save Nangong Yuqing. However, there were so many cultivators present, and she didn't want them all to lose their lives here. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you want to leave, then leave. We won't be fooled by your tricks. Xiao Sudong also sneered. Di Xiaofeng and the others still didn't want to leave after seeing this scene. However, they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't lie to them at this time and decided to trust Bailey Hongzhuang. In the next moment, Di Xiaofeng quickly walked to Murong Jing's side. Murong Jing, put down the things and leave with me. Xiaofeng, are you crazy? There are so many treasures here. Wouldn't it be a loss if we just leave like this? Murong Jing rolled his eyes. This was a good opportunity to improve himself. Whoever gave it up would be a fool. Although I don't know what's going on, the situation is urgent. Trust me this time. We've been brothers for so many years, I won't lie to you. Di Xiaofeng said. Di Xiaofeng didn't care whether Murong Jing agreed or not, and pulled him out of the main hall. Xiaofeng, stop messing around. Murong Jing's face was filled with anger. If you continue like this, I'll make a move. Even if you do, I'll pull you out. Di Xiaofeng's attitude was very firm. He and Murong Jing were best friends. If there was really something strange here, then he couldn't let anything happen to Murong Jing. Bailey Hongzhuang's people immediately walked out of the main hall. In the process, they dragged the cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family out. They did not give the other party any chance at all. Even if the family members were full of dissatisfaction, Di Beichen and Lin Taxing still asked everyone to leave. Everyone had no choice but to follow him and leave. Bailey Hongzhuang is really crazy. How can she ask us to leave when we have such a great opportunity? What are we going to do about this loss? Let's have a good talk. If we leave just like this, we will definitely not be able to compare to the cultivators of the other clans. That's right, what should we do? The group of disciples were filled with depression. They even wanted to directly refute Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Di Beichen was the young master of the Di family, and Bailey Hongzhuang was the young master's wife. It was obviously inappropriate for them to refute like this. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. It was not until they had left the main hall that Bailey Hongzhuang felt relieved. Of course, Bailey Hongzhuang's group had caused quite a stir and had attracted the attention of some cultivators. Everyone had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had deliberately said this to distract everyone so that they could fight for the treasures. However, when they noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang's group had really turned around and left without taking anything, their eyes filled with confusion. What's going on with them? Could Bailey Hongzhuang be telling the truth? Chapter 4909. Only after they left the main hall did Bailey Hongzhuang let out a sigh of relief. Hongzhuang, tell me what's going on? Di Xiaofeng immediately asked, not to mention Murong Jing, who was still glaring at him furiously. Even he himself wanted to know what was going on. Lin Qianqian and the others were also looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with burning gazes, anger faintly visible in their eyes. Obviously, if Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't give them a reasonable explanation, they would really get angry. Wife, don't be anxious. Tell me in detail. Di Beichen stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang. His gaze swept past everyone, blocking the furious gazes of the others. Noticing Di Beichen's expression, everyone restrained their anger. Look carefully at the expressions of those cultivators in the main hall. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reminded everyone to observe. What expressions can they have? Aren't they excited? Lin Qianqian said without hesitation. Anyone who sees so many treasures will inevitably be excited. However, when everyone carefully observed the expressions of the cultivators in the main hall, they noticed something different. I noticed that their expressions seemed somewhat strange. Di Xiaofeng suddenly said doubtfully. Before Bailey Hongzhuang reminded him, he didn't notice it. Now that he looked carefully, he noticed that everyone's faces were filled with excitement. It was normal for him to be excited, but there was something strange about this excitement. Most importantly, everyone's eyes were dyed with a trace of blood red, filled with madness. Obviously, something was wrong with this point. After Di Xiaofeng noticed it, the other cultivators naturally noticed it as well. Immediately, a strange light appeared in their eyes. At this moment, another figure appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that this person was actually Chen Feng. Chen Feng? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. So far, other than the cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family, no one else had left the main hall. Obviously, no one would believe what he said at this time. Unexpectedly, Chen Feng had also come out. Moreover, he did not have any treasures with him. This caused her to be somewhat flabbergasted. Chen Feng glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and cupped his hands. Thank you for your reminder. I owe you one. Upon hearing this, Lin Qianqian and the others' expressions changed. Chen Feng was the strongest among all the cultivators here. Normally, he was also the representative of all the cultivators here. Nobody could overlook his existence. Since he had come out, it proved that there was something strange about the main palace. After the Great Devil Sect's cultivators saw Chen Feng leave, many of them started to change their minds. After hesitating for a while, he decided to put down the treasures and leave. The stronger one was, the more they desired these treasures. Since even Chen Feng was willing to give up, it was only natural that they would do the same. Wife, how did you find out that there was a problem here? Di Beichen's deep black eyes were filled with doubt and astonishment. At this moment, he was also somewhat afraid. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, he would probably be the same as the other cultivators in the main hall. It's all thanks to the stone in my hand, Bailey Hongzhuang explained. Chapter 49:10. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and the others finally understood. It turns out that this stone has such an effect. If it weren't for this stone, I'm afraid we would all be in trouble. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with amazement before he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang apologetically. Sister-in-law, I'm really sorry for my attitude just now. Lin Qianqian and the others were also apologetic. When they heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had asked them to leave, they were actually very dissatisfied. Because there were so many treasures, it was really too difficult to give up just like that. Now that they understood that everything Bailey Hongzhuang did before was to save them, their hearts were naturally filled with regret. Hongzhuang, it was all our fault before. I'm really sorry, Lin Qianqian hurriedly said. Looking at everyone's apologetic faces, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. It's okay. You don't have to apologize. The influence of this main hall is too great. Everyone can't resist the temptation of the treasures. If it weren't for the stone's help, I wouldn't have reacted better than everyone else. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang once again looked at the treasures in the ruins. She really didn't expect that this seemingly risk-free ruin would actually have so many problems. This kind of danger was actually 100 times more dangerous than the ruins they had encountered before, because it could make everyone fall into a state of madness. Isn't the owner of this ruin a light attribute cultivator? Why is everything here so strange? Lin Taxing was puzzled. Generally speaking, light meant justice. As long as it was a light attribute cultivator, they shouldn't do such a sinister thing. However, they encountered it here. Perhaps all of this is deliberately disguised. It is precisely because this attribute will make us unconsciously lower our defense that it is easier to fall into a trap. Bang, bang, bang. A battle broke out in the main hall. Many cultivators had already started fighting over the treasures. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stood outside the main hall and looked at each other. This situation was really too strange. Mo Yunjue turned to look at Chen Feng and suddenly asked, Chen Feng, how did you know that something was wrong here? Chen Feng looked up at Mo Yunjue and said, I didn't think so at first, but everything before was too smooth, so I always felt strange in my heart. Since entering the main hall, I felt that there was an energy inadvertently affecting my mind. The cultivation method itself has the ability to sober me up. Ordinary bewitchment can't confuse me, but the power of bewitchment here is really strong. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice helped me and made me sober up. So that's the case. Everyone immediately understood, and their hearts were filled rejoiced. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have this stone, they might have all died here. An idea suddenly popped into my head. Emperor Xiaofeng suddenly said, This ruin has always been releasing light. Maybe it's to attract cultivators and make them all stay here. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned for a moment. Then, they all felt their hair stand on end. Because what Di Xiaofeng said was very likely true. If that's really the case, then it's really too terrifying. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black bright eyes bloomed with a dim light. This kind of method was simply like that of a demon. Chapter 49:11. Everyone connected everything that had happened before and felt that this dazzling, holy, and bright ruin was exceptionally strange. I wonder what is the purpose of this main hall to attract everyone. Mo Yunjue looked at the people fighting in the main hall with a calm gaze. Although he could see some abnormal blushes on the faces of these cultivators, at least there was no danger so far. Although Chanfeng's personality was cold and arrogant, as the eldest senior brother of the Great Devil sect, he still ordered his disciples to leave the main hall. Although the Great Devil sect's cultivators were unwilling, most of them still chose to believe in Chen Feng, while some who had been bewitched still stayed inside, unwilling to come out. Regarding this, Chen Feng did not say anything more. As the eldest senior brother, he had already done his best. Some people had obviously been bewitched, so even if he said anything more, it would be useless. Moreover, this main hall was so strange. If he went in again, he could not guarantee that he would not be able to come out. Why don't we leave first? This place is too strange. Only by leaving here will we feel safe, Di Xiaofeng suggested. Previously, he felt that this was a paradise for cultivators, but now that he realized the problem, he felt that this was a hell that ate people without spitting out their bones. If they continued to stay, no one knew what would happen. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded slightly. They were indeed unwilling to stay here. Then let's go. Lin Xianxian and the others also took a step forward. Now, this ruin was a trap in their eyes. No one knew if they would lose their lives if they continued to stay here. They did not care about others. The only thing they could care about was their own brothers and sisters. Good. Everyone agreed. Now, they no longer had the enthusiasm for the treasure. This gloomy and terrifying feeling had already extinguished their previous enthusiasm. After Xiao Sudong obtained the treasure, his gaze fell on Di Beichun and the others. When he saw that Di Beichun and the others had actually chosen to leave, he felt somewhat strange. Most importantly, the people of the Great Devil sect had also chosen to leave together. This was strange. No one would not be moved by such a treasure, yet they chose to give it up. Could it be that there was something wrong with this place? Thinking of this, Xiao Sudong also started to doubt. At this moment, a loud laugh rang out. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others heard this sound, they could not help but stop in their tracks. When they turned their heads, they discovered that the body of the cultivator holding the most treasures was gradually festering. It was a terrifying sight. However, there was still an excited smile on his face, which looked very strange in such a situation. Lin Xianxian couldn't help but exclaim. Such a situation was really creepy. This person is really crazy. Let's go. Lin Xianxian could not help but wrap her arms around her chest. It was warm, but she felt an unprecedented chill. After the first cultivator had such a situation, the other cultivators also began to experience the same thing. After seeing this situation, Xiao Sudong didn't dare to hold the treasure anymore. He immediately threw it away and rushed out. His face was completely pale, and there were no other thoughts in his mind. The only thought in his mind was to leave this place. Chapter 49:12. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Xiao Sudong shouted at Jun Qinbin, but his footsteps never stopped. His gaze was fixed on Di Beichun and the rest. Although both sides were enemies, he only wanted to follow Di Beichun and the rest. Only then would he feel at ease. Jun Qinbin was also in a state of confusion. When he suddenly heard Xiao Sudong shout, he could not help but be stunned. He regained some of his senses and did not dare to stay any longer. He hurriedly left the treasures behind and ran out. Some of the cultivators who were fighting over the treasures immediately understood the problem when they saw this situation. They all ran out of the main hall as if they were running for their lives. They no longer had the desire to fight for the treasures. However, some of the cultivators who had held the treasures for a longer time had completely lost their minds. Even though their teammates shouted with all their might, it was still useless. In a short period of time, many of the cultivators had already rotted and melted into ghastly white bones. The scene was horrifying and bloody, sending chills down one's spine. After the other cultivators rushed out, they quickly approached Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Until now, they still did not understand the situation. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was the first cultivator to discover the problem. Everyone had already treated her as a life-saving straw. "Miss Bailey, what's going on?" One of the cultivators could not help but ask. He did not know Bailey Hongzhuang, but they were not enemies with the D family. Hence, he asked. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "I'm not sure what's going on here. The only thing I can be sure of is that there's something strange about these ruins. We can't take the treasures in the main hall." At this moment, Xiao Sudong and the rest were all pale. The white floor of the main hall had been stained red with blood. It was extremely horrifying. Heavens, I never thought that this place would be so terrifying. Previously, I thought that this was heaven. In the blink of an eye, it has become hell. "Miss Bailey, you're really amazing. You actually discovered the problem here." "That's right. If it wasn't for Miss Bailey's reminder, I'm afraid that our situation would be even worse. We might have already lost our lives here." Everyone's eyes were filled with sincerity. Bailey Hongzhuang's previous shout had indeed had a certain effect on them. If it weren't for the fact that the cultivators of the D family, Lin family, and the Great Devil sect had chosen to leave, they would have already focused all their attention on the treasure. Even if they discovered that there was a problem later on, they probably wouldn't have been able to come out. Most of the cultivators who came out were hesitant before, which was why they did not completely fall into the trap. When the cultivators of the D family saw that their young madam was being praised so highly, they were all overjoyed. "Young madam is really amazing. She can still remain so calm at a time like this." "That's right. I admire young madam more and more now. With young master and young madam, I suddenly feel that there's something to look forward to." Di Xiaofeng and the others also smiled. This was probably the only thing they could be happy about right now. "It's just that we discovered it earlier. Is there need to be so exaggerated?" Xiao Sudong curled his lips. Seeing that all the limelight had been stolen by Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt a burst of displeasure in his heart. Chapter 49:13. Xiao Sudong only muttered a few words, but he did not expect Lin Qianqian to hear it. Being suddenly brought up by Lin Qianqian, his face was a little awkward. "Xiao Sudong, if I remember correctly, we are enemies now. Since you have come out of the main palace, you should go your own way. Don't be with us, it will be hard on you." Di Xiaofeng's lips curled into a mocking smile, his face full of displeasure. If it were not for the fact that he had a good relationship with the Xiao family, he would not have bothered to talk nonsense. However, the relationship between the two parties would only get worse in the future. "I'm just saying what I think. What's more, there are only two paths here. I'm willing to take this one. What can you do about it? Xiao Sudong forced himself to be tough, but anyone could hear the guilt in his words. They suddenly felt that this guy was really thick-skinned. Everyone shook their heads. Not only was he thick-skinned, but he was also saying bad things about others. He seemed to be particularly petty. Then you take this path. We'll take another one. Di Beichen said lightly. Xiao Sudong's expression changed, and he looked at Di Beichen hatefully. This guy did not give him any leeway. Then I'll change too. Xiao Sudong did not care about his face at this moment. After all, nothing was more important than his life. No matter what, he had to follow the group closely. Otherwise, this ruin was so strange that no one knew what would happen next. If he was separated from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he really did not know if he could walk out. Everyone rolled their eyes and did not want to say anything. Di Beichen and the others were too lazy to care. At this time, they were not in the mood to argue with Xiao Sudong. After all, it was best to leave this ruin as soon as possible. In the next moment, everyone chose a path and walked out. However, after they set off, they found that there were layers of fog in front of them. They could only see within a radius of 10 meters and could not see anything further. How could this be? Lin Qianqian was shocked. She did not expect such a sudden change. It seems that this remnant is truly strange. I'm afraid that it's trying to trap all of us here. Di Beichen's deep eyes turned serious. He looked around cautiously. Obviously, this ruin did not want any of them to leave. Heavens, I thought my luck was too good. I didn't expect this place to be such a terrifying place. Then what should we do? Do you think you can make it out alive? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was equally solemn. We can only take it one step at a time. Everyone, try not to split up and think of a way to leave this place together. Hearing that, everyone nodded. At that moment, everyone's hearts were united. They all had the same thought, and they only wanted to leave this place alive. Wife, does that stone have any guidance? Di Beichen asked. No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. The stone is still the same as before. Other than keeping me awake, it has no other guidance. It seems that we can only rely on ourselves to find a way to leave this place. A determined look appeared on Di Beichen's handsome face. He held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand tightly and said, "Let's go." Chapter 49:14. As everyone continued to move forward, no one could tell which path they were walking on. That was because no one could see clearly beyond 10 meters. However, after everyone had walked for some distance, a cry of surprise was suddenly heard. What happened? Di Xiaofeng asked as he looked at the cultivators who were crying out in surprise. The cultivator's face was pale, without a trace of blood. He trembled as he said, "Didn't you notice that the number of people seems to have decreased?" Following this cultivator's words, everyone present was stunned. After carefully sizing up the group, they realized that there were indeed fewer people than before. How could this be? Everyone was dumbfounded. They had been walking together all along, but no one noticed when the cultivators disappeared. Why did they disappear for no reason? What should we do? An indescribable panic exploded in everyone's hearts. Such a strange situation made everyone's hair stand on end. As cultivators, everyone was already used to seeing life and death. If they died for no reason, at least they wouldn't be in such a state. However, it was truly frightening for him to disappear without a trace. It was as if there was an invisible hand surrounding them, and no one knew when it would reach out to them. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. This situation was completely out of their expectations. Along the way, they didn't notice that there were cultivators disappearing behind them at all. Most importantly, it disappeared without a sound. There wasn't even the slightest cry of pain. That was the biggest problem. No matter what, they couldn't understand why this happened. Just then, Di Beichen suddenly said, "Let's put down all the treasures we obtained here." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Di Beichen continued, "There's obviously something wrong with the things in this ruin. There's something wrong with the treasures in the main hall, and there's probably something wrong with the treasures we obtained. The disappearance of these people might be related to these treasures. For safety's sake, let's do this. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded after hearing Di Beichen's words. That's right, this is the safest. She felt that everyone was in such a predicament because of greed. After what happened in the main hall, she understood this point. Beichen, do you think that there are so many treasures in this hall that were left behind by cultivators in the past? Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Previously, no one understood why there were so many treasures here. Moreover, these treasures were all real. They knew very well that the things here were not illusions, and they weren't in an illusion. It was impossible for so many treasures to be gathered in one place. Even if the owner of this ruin was incredible, it was still impossible to have so many treasures. However, according to Bailey Hongzhuang's guess, everything became possible. If that's the case, then the owner of this ruin is simply a devil. Di Beichen's face was gloomy. Such a terrifying method was not something that an ordinary person could do. Chapter 49:15. Now that they were faced with these treasures again, they no longer coveted them. Instead, they threw them away like hot potatoes. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did so, Di Xiaofeng and the rest no longer hesitated. Although the treasures were good, they still needed to be alive to enjoy them. The treasures here were so terrifying that they did not want them anymore. Chen Feng did not hesitate either. He immediately took out the treasures and placed them on the ground. In an instant, everyone began to take out their items. The treasures that everyone usually fought over were now abandoned by everyone. Let's continue. After making the decision, everyone continued moving forward. However, along the way, cultivators were still disappearing one after another. Everyone was even more nervous. However, at this moment, no one could guarantee their safety. Not only that, when they entered, no one felt that this path was very long. However, now that they were about to leave, they felt that this path was incomparably long. They had obviously walked for a long time, yet they still could not see the exit. Chun Feng's voice was solemn and deep as he reminded everyone. This fog seems to have the ability to devour elemental energy. Along the way, he did not use any elemental energy, yet he found that the elemental energy in his body was gradually dissipating. Now, less than half of the elemental energy in his body was left. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not look too good when they heard this. This was because they also felt that the elemental energy in their body was dissipating. However, no one said it out loud. This would only increase the panic in everyone's heart. Chun Feng continued, I suggest that we stop and rest after walking for a while. If all our elemental energy is exhausted, it won't be good for us to stay here. No one objected to Chun Feng's suggestion. As the strongest existence among the cultivators, Chun Feng had a lot of authority. Most importantly, everyone's minds were already in a mess due to this bizarre situation. Naturally, they would listen to whoever had the idea. Chen Feng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. This ruin is very bizarre. Moreover, this path is extending endlessly. We don't know if we have returned to the starting point. It will be better to rest for a while and maintain our peak condition. All right, Di Beichen nodded. I have the same idea. For a moment, everyone gathered together and started recovering their essence energy. Chun Feng's gaze landed on the group of cultivators. Now, everyone should remember the people around you. This way, the moment someone disappears, you will be able to discover it. One more thing. Is there anyone who is still holding onto the treasures that they haven't thrown away? As soon as he said that, all the cultivators present shook their heads. However, among the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang still noticed a few cultivators who remained silent. Naturally, Chen Feng noticed this as well. He said, It is your business if you decide to leave the treasure behind. However, if any danger arises, you will have to bear the consequences. Since you don't want to give up the treasure, then you should sit a little further away from us. Don't bring danger to us. As soon as he said that, The cultivators who were unwilling to give up their treasures looked indignant. Chinfeng, what makes you say that? Exactly. Why can't we be together? Don't think that just because you are a member of the Great Devil Sect, we are not afraid of you. Facing their dissatisfied voices, Chinfeng's expression was exceptionally cold. Since you guys refuse to cooperate, this is how it should be. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.